Thank you all so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. You're in for such a treat with this event. And I'm Dion Mishler. I'm the chapter president of the AA-ISP OC chapter, as well as director of sales at Sage. And the AA-ISP, if you haven't taken a look at it yet, is really the only association of its kind dedicated to inside sales. And as we all know, if you read the Harvard Business Review, it's growing tremendously. So if you're here, you care about making your number, and you care about making your number well. I just really encourage you to take a look at the association. If you have access to amazing folks, amazing information, if you have any questions, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And I also wanted to shout out to John Reese. He's a VP of Marketing at Velocify. He's also our marketing executive for the chapter. And most of you met Mara Rand, who's our chapter VP, and she's also a sales leader at HireRight. All right, so for the next hour, give or take, we're gonna talk about a topic that's on everybody's mind, sales productivity, AKA the gas in the tank, right? How do you keep your folks motivated? How do you make sure that they're coming in every day geared up to crush their quota and your competition? Because that's what it's all about, right? All right, so we've got Coca Sexton with LinkedIn joining us. We have Mike Smalls, who's the CEO of Hoopla Software. And we've got Steve DeMarco, who's the VP of Worldwide Sales for Xactly. Coca, social selling is not a fad. It's not going away. If you're not on the train, you're gonna get run over by it, right?
I sure hope so.
Absolutely. And so Coca is a leader and visionary when it comes to social selling. So I have a feeling that after we hear from you, a lot of people are gonna update their profiles and looked at LinkedIn maybe just a little bit differently, hopefully.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. Mike, gamification, I know you're not a big fan of that word. Everybody knows that it's so much more fun when it's a game, right? So are you motivating your employees? Are you keeping your teams incented? Are they engaged in what you're doing? So Mike is gonna bring some expertise to bear for us on that. And Steve, compensation.
Yes.
It's a huge thing. Who goes into sales to change the world? Kind of, right? There's another reason for it. But compensation isn't always about money, right?
That's right.
So there's other factors to that. With that, we're gonna go in alpha order, left to right by first name, in case anybody was wondering. And Coca, we'll go ahead and start with you.
So quick question, and it's kind of a no-brainer. How many people here are on LinkedIn? How many of you have updated your profile in the past month? Past week? How many of them have updated it today? I'm just talking about status updates or anything.
Oh,
All right.
Oh, I pushed something out there.
That's considering updating your profile. LinkedIn just celebrated its 10-year anniversary, and it's still coming out of that world where people think that LinkedIn is their online resume, and that's what most people see it as. It's your CV, it's where you put your job history into it. You know, a few years ago when I was in sales, I started thinking of LinkedIn in a different light, where people are getting connected within this network, and you have the ability to actually have conversations with them and comment on things that they're posting, either in groups or through their own status update. And it fundamentally changed my view on sales. It started building my pipeline to a point where I never had to make any more cold calls. And my boss used to get mad at me because I wasn't hitting my number when he used to look at the dial sheet to see how many phone calls I was making in a week or a day or whatever the case was. And I used to tell him, hey, why would I need to make 60 phone calls a day when I only need to make 4 that actually count? The problem is that even though that was 6, 7 years ago when I started it, there's still companies that are still facing this problem. There's still sales reps I come across that have that issue where they're being measured by the number of dials that they make. Social selling has shifted how salespeople do their jobs. It's all based on connections. It's about how you're leveraging these networks. You know, the aha moment for me was when I was in sales and I learned that my LinkedIn connections I could somehow marry to my Twitter profile as well. And I realized that people were having conversations that I knew on LinkedIn on Twitter. And I could start using those conversations in a relevant way, because people are posting on Twitter for a public reason. So why not reference that information? You know, social selling, you know, by my definition, is literally just leveraging social networks in a way that builds your pipeline. And LinkedIn, when I think of the big 3, which is Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, Twitter is the application, it's the platform that you can kind of talk with anybody. You just post your 140 characters of what you ate for lunch, to being stuck at the airport, to having conversations with Kim Kardashian, all the way down to talking to the San Francisco Giants. The ballpark has its own profile. It's a broadcast channel. And there's some sales use for it, but it's mostly a broadcast channel. It's mostly for these conversations. And then there's Facebook. And Facebook is really more of a personal connection, where most people are only connecting with people on Facebook that they know really well. So they went to school with them or something along those lines, or family or friends. There's very little business that can be done on Facebook. There are some outliers that are actually doing this, but it's very few and far between, because most people are not comfortable bringing the outside world into their Facebook feed, because you're typically posting things that are very, very personal. So when I look at what social selling is and what platforms are out there, I think LinkedIn is the only one. It's the professional network, and that's what they brand themselves as. They don't want to be the next Facebook. They don't want to be Twitter. They want to be that professional network, and they want to create economic opportunity for people across the world. And by economic opportunity, I mean everything from finding a job to using the platform to building your pipeline. There's many ways that you can use the platform. And one of the first and foremost is most people don't understand how to even leverage their own profile. So that's really what I want to focus on. Is that your profile is not just your online resume. Your profile is your individual brand giving information to the outside world. How many of you in sales, when you are prospecting, will look at somebody's LinkedIn profile? Most of you. The reality is that most people are looking at your profile also. When you leave them a voicemail, when you send them an email, they're going to your LinkedIn profile to see what you're all about. Is this person legit? Do I want to talk to them? Are they some fly-by-night salesperson that's just out there to take my money? They look at your work history, they see where you went to school, they base a judgment on you based on your profile. So why wouldn't you want that profile to be as polished as possible? So, as she had mentioned earlier, I think that all of you should go back and look at your LinkedIn profiles.
Who's going to really do that today?
How many of you are adding value through your profile, or just speaking to whoever's reading it? If you have "I'm a quota crusher" on your LinkedIn profile, yeah, that might look good when an HR manager's looking at it, but that's not the real purpose of it. When your prospects are looking at your profile, they want to see how you're helping your customers. They want to see how you're adding value to their lives. So update it with rich media, put PDFs in there, put videos. One of the things that we've done internally is what we call resume to reputation. Turn your resume, your online resume, into your personal brand. Go in there and start creating the brand of you to the outside world, because eventually, if we have our way, LinkedIn is going to be that brand of your professional brands.
Absolutely. That's good. All right.
Yeah.
Mike?
So I've been a sales leader for years, and a few years ago, continued to struggle with something that I saw everybody else struggling with, which is getting my teams, my sales teams, to actually do the actions and behaviors that I knew would lead to success. But no matter how many times you beat them over the head or beg them or plead with them or whatever, they just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I took a big step back and said, there's a specific wiring of a salesperson. You people are unique, right? And in a good way, but unique nonetheless. And what I set out to do is sort of say, well, how do you actually tap into the natural motivation, the natural DNA of a salesperson to get them to do the things you want them to do without it being a begging, plotting, pleading kind of thing. And so started to look at various motivational psychology elements, different things, and sort of looked at the elements that make up a salesperson, right? They love to look good. They love to be recognized. They're very competitive. They like to win. And when you start to look at all those different attributes, what you realize is that most organizations do a horrible job of is tapping into that. Recognition, just take that as an example. Oftentimes, we all know that a sale is not done until the paperwork is in, but everybody's heard about it, the rumor of the deal, weeks before it gets finalized. We can't celebrate it yet, though. So then by the time it gets done, it's like ho-hum, that's already in the background, right? So that's one example. Another is sort of the behaviors that get infused in an organization, bad behaviors, such as rewarding a salesperson who's not been revealing anything about the deal until the last minute. They come riding in on a white knight, right? And here's the big $1 million deal. What are you going to do? Slap them for that? No, you're going to reward them for that. Right. The problem is it just reinforced some bad behaviors. And so there's a whole bunch of these types of examples. And as we founded the company Hoopla to sort of address that, try to solve our own problem, we sort of hit on something that's really sort of tapping into a vein out there. And what we've done is we've taken a look at various elements, competition, recognition, game mechanics, reward systems, that sort of thing, combine them together into a system that allows companies to, in an automated way, measure, track, reward, create contests and competitions around that, and drive the right kind of behaviors. And it's amazing the impact that has on companies. It taps right into the natural psychology. The salespeople from the companies that use Hoopla are actually famous within their own companies. They get put on ESPN, essentially, on the screens in their organizations. And what I want to talk about, is a little bit about this concept of gamification. Everybody's heard the term now, and how does that apply to sort of the right ways to motivate a salesperson? Gamification, as Dion has suggested, is a term that I don't really like because I think it cheapens exactly what we're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is, we're trying to steer the behaviors and motivate people. Gamification implies, let's throw some points and badges at something and it just magically works, right? You can gamify just about anything. What we're actually focused on is employee engagement. How do you engage the salespeople? How do you motivate them to perform at their peak level? So
absolutely.
That's what we'll talk about.
You pay them. You pay them. No, it's not just about. It's just not just about money. Hi everyone, I'm Steve DeMarco from Xactly, and I run our worldwide sales organization. We're headquartered up in San Jose, California, and I'm actually out of our Denver, Colorado office. So it's great to be out here where it's sunny and warm and perfect. Quick question, how many of you are members of AA-ISP? Is everybody here a member, or are there non-members? I'm just curious, because I'm a huge fan. We've been associated, I've been with Xactly now for the 8 years of our existence. We're an 8-year-old company. And we've been members of AA-ISP for about 3.5 of those years. And I just think it's a phenomenal organization. I grew up in inside sales. My first sales job, I'll date myself here, it was like 1992. And it was as an inside sales rep for a company called Silicon Graphics. It's a hardware company based out of Mountain View, kind of a hot company at the time. And it was funny because back then inside sales was considered a little bit of the second-class citizen to the mighty field sales reps, and everybody wanted to be the field sales guy. And it's just really gratifying to see how that's completely turned over. Since then, I've had jobs in both inside sales and field enterprise sales for different companies, and now I run our worldwide organization, which consists of, the biggest chunk is inside sales. We do the majority of our revenue through inside sales, and we also have a second-class citizen group called field sales. No, I'm just kidding. We love them.
The tables have turned.
But we have that team as well, and they are necessary. Got to have them, to go do the face-to-face stuff with the big giant companies. But this is a great organization, I think, because it really brings to bear, I think, what has become the most powerful sales machine in most companies. I think it's neat for a lot of reasons, one not the least of which is the tools that you can use, the productivity, and that's what we're here talking about, is sales productivity. I think you get so much more sales productivity out of folks that are in-house the majority of the time. Some companies have hybrid sales organizations. One of our inside groups is sort of a hybrid inside-outside organization. And so it's really neat, and it's a great subject and a great topic, one that I'm a big fan of because I'm a student of sales productivity, always trying to figure out ways to get our sales reps to be able to do more and to motivate them more. And we own all the tools that these guys have to offer, and so it's great. As it relates to sales compensation and commission, how many of you are on commission plans? I imagine if you're in sales, you're on some sort of a commission plan. Okay, great. How many of you get your commission? How many of you know that your commission plan is managed using Excel spreadsheets? Yeah, you get that statement, you get the spreadsheet. Has anybody ever been with a company where your commission is calculated using a tool like Xactly, with an automated solution? Right, not many. So you got to get everybody's name down. That's exactly why we're in existence.
Yeah.
As commission plans have been around forever, I don't know who the first salespeople were, but I guarantee you they were probably paid based on their performance. Maybe some base salary, sometimes 100% commission. So commission plans are nothing new. What's new is the fact that you can have a solution, a software application like Xactly that can automate that whole process. And I just think it's the best idea since sliced bread, because you have these salespeople that are out there and they're striving to make more money, but yet you pay them using a spreadsheet, and a lot of times there's errors. They have to keep their own side spreadsheet, and usually the two don't match, and then they spend a month trying to reconcile that. Talk about productivity killer. That's a huge one, okay? And so Xactly is in existence to bring to the market a tool, a sales application that can help automate that whole process. Finance, the people that typically manage the spreadsheets, they love Xactly because they get to take that nightmare off their plate. Some poor person or group of people, every month when it's time to calculate commissions, they want to jump out a window because they know it's just going to be a nightmare, and they spend hours and hours struggling with this process. So we streamline that whole process. We make it automatic. Orders come in, commission gets calculated. The salespeople and sales management love tools like this, like Xactly, because it's accurate 100% of the time. You get to look and see where you are during the month, during the period that you're selling, which is really, that's when you want salespeople to kind of see how close are they to hitting a target or a goal. You don't want them to know after the fact that, man, if I just would have sold that one more deal, I could have been in kickers and I could have made an extra $4,000. That's the wrong time. You want them to know ahead of time, hey, if I can sell this deal, I'm going to cancel my golf game on Friday and I'm going to sell this thing because I'll be in accelerated dollars. That's when you want them to, and it's that visibility that our tool brings to the sales side that sales VPs and sales management really love, because it affects the behavior. We're very closely tied to what Mike here does at Hoopla. And we'll probably talk about that a little bit, because like I said, we're Hoopla users ourselves. So it's that combination that really, really, really hits home with people. So that's what Xactly does. And if your companies today aren't using a tool like Xactly to manage your commission process, should let someone in your company know, or let us know, and we'll talk to them, because it definitely is a productivity booster. Pay the way sales reps get paid. It's funny, I was in the parking lot just before I came in here, and it was a recruiting call. There's a guy in Cleveland, and he's vacillating whether he wants to move out to Colorado and take one of our open sales positions. And first of all, I said, well, you're in Cleveland, and no offense to anybody who loves Cleveland, but we talked about commissions, and we talked about motivation and things like that. And one of the reasons one of the biggest complaints he has with his current company is commissions. And I asked him, I said, why are you in sales? And he said, he actually said to me, he goes, I know this might sound crass, but I want to make a lot of money. And I said, crass? If you didn't say that, I wouldn't have hired you. I mean, to me, they have to say that. Whenever someone says, I want to be in sales because I like people, I think that's awesome. We all like people, but I have a great customer service position that you get to talk to people all the time, and they'll like you, and you can like them, and you can like each other. But no, salespeople, like you say, they have a different makeup, a different DNA. Absolutely, we like people, we like relating, we like talking, but we also want to make a lot of money. We want to be able to control that aspect of our working lives. I mean, it's the only job. I always said, it's like, being a salesperson, if you're not a professional athlete or a movie star or a rock star, it's one of the only jobs where you can come in at any age and dictate how much you can make. I had a 26-year-old person who was a phenomenal sales rep make, you know, $750,000 one year because they just killed it. And that's great. That's enticing. You know, the flip side to that is your performance is out there for the world to see. You know, I always say that, you know, the greatest job in the world, the best job you can have is a sales job when it's going great. The other end of the spectrum is the worst job in the world to have is a sales job when it's not going great. And every other job falls in between there. But that's okay, you know, we sign up for that. Absolutely. So in order to motivate salespeople and keep them really focused and happy, you know, make sure you get the pay right, because that's the majority of the reason they're in the game to begin with.
I'm sure you're all sitting there going, holy cow, I need to go look at my LinkedIn profile. I got to study that. I'm going to connect with folks. Because if you don't raise your hand, I'm not going to have people raise their hand, but you better be thinking it, right? And then who's going to go back and go, I got to go talk to my finance person because I need to be off the Excel spreadsheet. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and again, if you all have questions for Coca, Mike, or Steve, please feel free, forward them as you would a note in class. You're not going to get in trouble this time.
Or you can just raise your hand.
Or you can raise your hand if you're comfortable talking in public as well.
You're in sales, you should have no problem raising your hand and talking in public.
Absolutely.
You know, one of the things, before we take questions, we're at LinkedIn, we're customers, I believe, of both.
Yeah.
But I'm a huge fan of Xactly and Hoopla for the reasons they just mentioned. One is we have this huge monitor for the sales solutions group that I'm aligned to, that is basically a leaderboard of where everybody is around the globe for our sales solutions team, as well as talent solutions, marketing solutions. They have these monitors, and everybody gets to see it. And anytime a big deal comes in, everybody knows it, because next thing you know, the screen is screaming at you and like playing music and showing people's pictures.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
About 2 years ago, I wrote a blog post about the gamification of sales, and I mentioned Xactly for that reason. Because your application is the only one I know of that, you know, back up a little bit. Most sales managers are always fighting their sales reps for their forecast. How close are you getting to your forecast? Are you hitting your deals on time? Or are they all coming at the very end? And your application actually helps out kind of manage that, and they get compensated more if those deals come in early. And I think that's one of those things that even sales managers, not just finance, needs to be paying attention to.
Absolutely. No, and you know, it's a great point you make, Coca. And the funny thing is, sometimes people think that gamification and sales compensation are sort of joined at the hip, and they are in a number of ways. But Mike described it best when he talked about engagement. And you know, you can certainly. One of the keys about a good sales compensation plan is that it's simple. You know, that's I think one of the highlights you'd mentioned, Dion, was, you know, talk about like the 2 or 3 sort of best practices that relates to the comp plans. I mean, for those of you, and you don't have to raise your hand on this one, but you know, some of you might not really even understand how you're paid. And believe me, I've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comp plans, and sometimes I can tell when a finance person's designed the comp plan, by the way. I look at that and I go, oh man, there isn't a salesperson alive that understands how they're paid with this comp plan. You got to keep it simple, because if the sales rep can't understand how they're being paid, it's not driving behavior. And that's the whole purpose of a variable comp plan. So many times I see people try and put stuff into the comp plan that shouldn't be in a comp plan. Well, I'm going to have a component in there that if they don't keep their CRM up to date, we're going to ding them. That's a job for this guy's stuff, right? I mean, you know, there's certain things that you want to drive engagement and behavior using the engage. I almost want to call you an engagement tool, because I know you hate gamification.
Yep.
Can I still say gamification?
You can say gamification.
All right. After today, no more, right?
No, it's, you know, it's still a term that's being used. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It's a.
No, but you're right, though. It is.
It's term.
Right. It's you know, but the gamification aspect of it, you can use that to drive certain behaviors, and then but the core behaviors where your company, a good comp plan, right, aligns the goals of your corporation to the behavior of your salespeople, right? A good comp plan does that. If your goal as a company is market share, you don't want to pay your reps a bunch of money to go take existing accounts and grow them. Right. You want to pay them a little for that, but you want to pay them more money, maybe bonuses or double commission on going out and getting new customers. Maybe if they steal a customer from a competitor, that's kind of hard to do. So pay them a boatload for that, and pay them different rates on these different behaviors you want. But that's the kind of thing you want to focus on with a comp plan. It's that, you know, understanding and making sure that there's just a few components that your reps really get, and the rest you can use tools like Hoopla to really motivate.
I think the other way that we can sort of we dovetail into what you do. The comp plan is after the fact a lot of times, right? It's you put it out there and you say, look, this is how you're going to make the most money. Now go figure out how to do it. But one of the things that we don't do well organizationally is give our reps a pathway to succeed. How many calls do you have to make a week? How many demos do you have to complete a week? What's the size of my pipeline that I need, right? And what we do with, what our customers use Hoopla for is they actually break it down into these components. And they rank people on those key elements that are going to get that person to the right level. They can set goals for the number of demos in a week or month or quarter or what have you, and show progress against that. They can ring a gong when they sell something, a virtual gong on the screens all around the world, but they can also have a breaking news alert when someone hits their demo quota, or they can have a soccer goal or slam dunk basketball or whatever it is that you want to celebrate along the way for those milestones. And I think that's where it really dovetails well into what you guys do.
Yeah, engagement and alignment. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a question for each and every one of you, but I won't hog the time. So I'll start with Coca. Specifically, a lot of times it takes some time and investment to get people involved in social selling. So sometimes people don't see immediate results from it. So they tire quickly of it. They sign up with a Twitter account. They post 1 or 2 things on LinkedIn. They don't see anything come from it, so they just stop doing it. How do you actually get broad acceptance within your sales organization to do social selling?
It's a wonderful question.
Would you mind repeating the question as well?
Yes. So the question is, how do you implement social selling in a way that actually has an impact, a quick impact? You know, there's no easy answer to this, and you know, I'm still, you know, they say I'm the kind of the crust of this social selling movement. It took me a long time to figure out how to get this thing done. And I'm still learning because social networks change almost every day. You know, I think that the very first thing, as we've mentioned before, is your profile. The second thing you really need to focus on is who are you connected to? You know, internally, we don't make cold calls. It's actually an edict from our worldwide sales manager. No one is allowed to just pick up the phone and call into a company. Because what's the point of that? We know that the data shows that cold calling into a company doesn't result. Maybe 1 out of 10 times you might actually get somebody who actually wants to talk to you. So our company only leverages connections. We use something called social proximity. So when a lead comes in, most people are geographically based. Northeast, Southwest, you work in this patch of zip codes, whatever it may be. A lead comes into LinkedIn, it goes through our SD team, and they look at it and say, who in our team has the most connections into this company? And then that's who gets the lead. And we have found, and the data shows us from like Forrester and some other analysts, that the chances of you getting the initial phone call and getting that demo and actually getting an opportunity and closing and winning it is closer to like 70 to 75%, just by leveraging connections. Because if I don't know you and I try and call you, what are the chances you want to talk to me? It's pretty slim, unless you have an immediate need like that day where your boss is saying, I need somebody to help me fix this problem. But if you know Michael, and I call Michael and say, hey, Michael, we went to college together, we worked at an old company, trying to get a hold of, how do you pronounce your first name? Gilbert. Oh, it's Dr. Gilbert. Yeah. Trying to get a hold of Dr. Gilbert here. Would you mind making an introduction for me? If Michael likes me, and if we actually have a relationship, he's going to make that connection. That's the quickest way that I can say that you will get results through social selling, is by leveraging your connections and focusing on those connections.
It's funny you mentioned that. I mean, I'll actually look at a candidate's for a job is LinkedIn, and if they don't have many connections, I kind of wonder, it's like, wow, they're clearly not a student of social selling, and you know, not that I won't hire them, but that's certainly, you know, sort of a pro and a con, you know, that you could see in there.
And there's a school of thought about, you know, how many people do you need to be connected with on LinkedIn? And this is a question that I get asked a lot also. And, you know, as a salesperson, I connected with anyone and everyone. You know, I now have the philosophy that unless I can add value to you, or you can add value to me, there's no reason to connect. On this other side of the spectrum, you know, one of our founders, Reid Hoffman, he always says, if I have not met you and shook your hand, I will never connect with you on LinkedIn. even employees or anybody else. But that's him. That's VC big guys that really can control that network. But if you're in sales, you should be connecting with people. You should be out there networking. How many events do you go to like this? I mean, maybe it's once a month, once a quarter, you get out and actually do something and meet some other people. You have the ability now, I think this is what's fundamentally changed in our industry, is that we now have the ability to network on a daily basis at any given point in time that we feel comfortable to us. I can reach out to Kendra, and even if she's not online at that moment, she may go into work tomorrow and actually see that I reach out to her. And if she's interested, then we'll chat. I mean, that's where social networks and social selling starts really having an impact, is being able to make those connections and leverage those connections to build your pipeline. Does that answer your question? Kind of?
Yeah, and just the other piece about this,
Sorry.
the other piece that's behind that question is, how do you get people to do the things you want them to do, right? So social selling is another selling technique that we want our salespeople to learn and practice. Yet we have no ability to reinforce certain behaviors that we know are going to be successful. And so that's the other piece of that, which is we need to start measuring those things.
Yeah.
And then we need to start making sure people understand they're important. We need to, and if you can tap into the competitive nature of salespeople, you can get them to do just about anything. And so I think a combination of those things, right? Understand the activities you're trying to get them to do, and then figure out a way to start steering those activities. That's the way you're going to get the best reinforcement.
Yeah, and I think that anybody in sales, if you're worth your weight in salt, is you are a type A personality. I've never met a successful salesperson that is not extremely proactive and eager to do things. They're type A's. And I think that being able to measure these things is important. So to your point earlier, I mean, about seeing the size of their network. I mean, so we have the sales solutions product is called LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and we have a dashboard that you can pull up on your employees, and we can see where people are connecting within their employee base. So if you sell a product into the high-tech industry, and 95% of your connections are in healthcare, you're probably not going to be able to do much. So you have to boost those things up. So you can use tools like Hoopla and other things out there to start leveraging people to connect with the right people who are actually going to be buying your product.
Absolutely.
Hi, I have a question for Coca. I'm a psychologist, so I sell a service. So, I mean, I can connect to other people and whatever, but how do I get the person that I intend the service for? You know what I mean? It's not something that necessarily say, oh yeah, I need that. I'm not sure how to go about that.
I'm not sure I understand the question. So you are trying to reach somebody on LinkedIn that...
Okay, I do updates and what have you. I have a lot of connections, but it's not necessarily turning into sales. Okay? or not sales, but actually clients. So I'm wondering, how do I turn that to go from just information I'm putting out there to maybe having more, what do you call it?
Feedback.
Reciprocate.
Or people coming back to you,
Yeah.
right? Interested or wanting to engage from a services standpoint.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Joe,
No, I
go
just
ahead.
had a comment on that because our marketing team is big on LinkedIn, and they, like that thing I told you I updated on my site. It was our marketing team said, hey, everybody, send this out, and we have 300 employees, and I'll send it out on their LinkedIn because we want to. It's a webinar or something like that. And on it is a link that they can, it's a call to action on everything we send out there. So anything you send out there with a call to action, so someone actually, gives them an incentive to respond. Oh, this is a piece of information or something I can download or something I can fill out. If you have something that I want, that is of value to me, you can capture them that way and get that interaction. That's just something I thought of. But
Yeah, and so kind of off that point, what are you putting in your status updates? I mean, how many of you actually update your status in LinkedIn on a regular basis? If you're like me, I mean, I'm kind of insane. I'm pushing out 50 or 60 a day, if any of you are connected to me.
Really?
Probably not that much, but it's actually a lot.
But you're behind right now.
Yeah, no. The beauty is that there's ways to automate this. So I'm actually sending out LinkedIn updates right now. And I'll tell you about that at another time.
Brain power.
I
Yeah.
need that.
So, your updates, I try and keep like a 4-to-1 ratio. So there's a lot of things in your field that you want to brand yourself and say that I am the source of information for things in my industry, so that you are constantly pushing out updates and news and things from Mashable or TechCrunch or industry papers, and you're just sharing knowledge with your industry. But there are going to be those things where you want to generate leads. And that's really what I focus on. I wouldn't be in my job if I wasn't able to generate leads. I mean, that's the reason why most social media managers don't have a lifespan for more than 1.5 years or 2 years in a company, because the boss looks at him and says, well, what have you done for us? I mean, yeah, you've sent out 3,000 tweets, but what has that done for the company? You know, if you can't generate a lead from it, then you're doing something wrong. You know, so as you're pushing out those general status updates, things in your industry, things you find interesting from connections, you should have things that you want to generate leads from. So it could be webinars. It could be downloading a white paper. It could be other content that your marketing team puts together. This is, you know, this is where sales and marketing, or, you know, you hear the term smarketing, starts coming into play, where marketing needs to start enabling salespeople a lot more than they used to. You can't just throw leads over the fence to sales and say, I hope this works. Marketing needs to start helping salespeople become mini marketers. And great salespeople are already figuring this out. They're generating leads on their own. As I had mentioned before, when I was in sales, I mean, how I got to where I am at LinkedIn is that I realized that marketing leads were crap. I realized that most of the stuff they were sending us were very low-level, non-interested, tire-kicking people. I needed to find people that were interested to buy right now if I was going to make any money in sales. So I started combing through social networks for people that are asking specific questions, or talking about the competitors, or looking for help to fill a need. And that's when I jumped on them. And I didn't go out and just immediately say, hey, my name's Coca Sexton, I work at this company, and I can solve all your problems right now. I'd start asking more questions. You know, now they call it the challenger sales method. There's a lot of methodologies around this. But then you start asking the questions. That person starts getting invested in you. And next thing you know, they're coming to you and just asking for general help. And that's when you start saying, okay, where's the opportunity to make money on this? You know, outside of that, there is, you know, you're somewhat responsible for finding your own business, and every salesperson is. You know, I think marketing is only providing 30% of most leads, or qualified leads, to salespeople. So where's the other 70% come from? You know, they've got to come from the salespeople doing their jobs. And the only way you're going to do that job and be effective at it is by leveraging your connections. Mm-hmm. So start looking at the companies that you want to sell into, and how are you connected to those companies? And start leveraging those connections to find the right people that you need to talk to set the meetings and actually get some business in. That kind of help? Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yeah, you just said you look into LinkedIn to see what are people asking, so that you can gauge that process to turn into a lead for you. How do you do that?
So the easiest way to do it is to just go in and search within LinkedIn. Use LinkedIn like a search engine, and look for keywords around your industry. You know, you can go into the groups of LinkedIn and type in search strings in certain groups and see people that are talking about specific things. It's basically just keywords. So if you sell a widget, you go into that widgets group. You know, I was on a webinar today. I've yet to find an industry that does not have a group within LinkedIn, if not 100 groups.
Tons of groups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've got 1 million groups now. I'd be surprised if we ever found an industry that didn't have some group attached to it. So do a quick search. What groups are part of that industry? Find out which ones are most active. We do a pretty good job of telling you which ones have new members and new comments being made in there. Just focus on those. Join those groups. Start searching them for keywords about people asking for help, like, hey, I'm having this problem. What widget solves this problem? And then that's when you kind of go in and say, hey, well, what is really your problem? Is it this or is it that? And then you start creating the dialogue, and then you take it offline. And that's when you get the phone call. That's when you get the meeting and you set up the demo. You know, if you go in there hard and fast like a salesperson, like, you know, from, say, 10 years ago, and you just say, buy, 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 buyers nowadays are just going to run away from you, because that's not how things are sold these days. You know, they want to know that you actually have something of value to give them. So that's where you kind of go in, you figure out what really the problem is, and then you help them out. But I'd say go into these groups, join the groups that are relevant to your industry, set up the emails so that you get the emails once a week or once a day or however often you want to manage these things, and then just do searches within them.
Yeah, I think that's a key, having that value. We're big LinkedIn users from a marketing perspective, and one of the things my company does is, because we have almost 1,000 customers, and we manage their commissions for them, because we have that data, we aggregate it and we talk about things like, hey, in the technology industry, 20% of the salespeople for technology companies do 120% of quota or more. We have really cool statistical information that no one else has. And we certainly provide some of that for our customers. We give them access to that data. But we're also using LinkedIn to get it out there because it's valuable. When we say, hey, Xactly Insights, it's called Insights, that product that we have. We just found out that 80% of companies out there in this industry have a president's club. And that's interesting because if a company's in that industry and they don't have a president's club, they might realize, oh, geez, this is something maybe we need to use to attract. And so we start pushing out that type of data to companies using LinkedIn, and all of a sudden you get people saying, well, I want more, and so you get that sort of reciprocal kind of go back and forth. You're putting something of value out there for them. So.
Yeah.
Okay, I always thought you guys should, because it's funny, are y'all familiar with the term Generation Y, Gen Y? Yeah, I know some of you are in it, so I'm not going to say anything disparaging about Gen Y, because our
And if they're Gen Y, they really wouldn't care anyway.
They wouldn't.
So you can just say whatever.
Yeah, they would just tweet it out.
Yeah, they just tweet it out and be like, yeah, this old guy up there was just talking about us.
No, it's funny because, I have a lot of, in Colorado especially, I have about 30 people, Gen Y. They're part of our sales team, they're part of our lead gen team, and they love Hoopla and they love LinkedIn. They love both of these products. And one of the things I try and do is I try and encourage them to get, there's certain training that is mandatory, but then there's certain things like AA-ISP certification. We want them to get AA-ISP certified. And I always thought it'd be cool. It's like, and that's something I don't want to put in the comp plan, because but it's a great gamification thing. It's like, take this training and you get certified, which is a big deal. And then, there should be a badge or something that they can put on their LinkedIn profile that says, I am AA-ISP certified. Because Gen Y loves that. I mean, again, to generalize the 78 million people, but we're
looking into that actually.
Yeah.
Not the exact but this the whole idea of certifications being in there.
Certification and different trainings and things like that, because that makes them stand out. And now it's a matter of how do you stand out on LinkedIn, and your two products could really help with that.
Absolutely. I think we're at time. One last question. Last question.
We're
Anybody?
blowhards.
Yeah, don't let us do all the talking.
Go ahead.
So I have a question for Steve. With all the data that you have, which is very interesting, what's the best comp plan for selling a brand new product?
Brand new product, so really, really high commission rate. Well, no, it depends. I mean, it depends if you if there's some internal competition. What I mean by that is, do you have salespeople that can sell the old product that they're comfortable and familiar with and make a lot of money selling, and you're trying to get their mind share to sell this new product, or is it a new product, just, that's the only thing you sell, this new product? Brand new company. So you want a very aggressive hunter salesperson. If, a person who's not a hunter, who maybe doesn't have the level of assertiveness that you're going to need for a salesperson in that situation, you don't necessarily want that person, right? You want someone who's willing to take a risk. It's a high risk situation. They probably have had experience doing that, and so the person that you hire to do that job is almost as important, if not as important, as the comp plan. The comp plan itself, though, a person to attract that person, you want to give them a very hot comp plan. So if they hit their goals, they want to make a lot of money. But you put that comp plan in front of the right person, you're going to sell whatever it is you're trying to sell.
Yeah, and at a startup, it's hard to figure out what the quota should be because you have no idea. So it's best, I think, to just do a straight line percentage of revenue kind of plan at that earliest stage. No caps, let them just go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you guys so much. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. We're going to have dinner. Please feel free to continue to network, mingle, continue the discussion. In just a few minutes, we're going to go ahead and do the raffle for all the different prizes that our sponsors have provided. We've got some great gift cards to some local entertainment, as well as a foursome for golf from the club. So if you're interested in golf, if you haven't dropped your card, please go ahead and do so. We'll wait. So again, just like Steve was saying, the association, the American Association of Inside Sales Professionals, I've been a member as well, and for the last 3 or 4 years, and it's grown from a couple hundred members to well over 5,000 individual members at this point. There's this local chapter. Again, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. We have our own group on LinkedIn as well, the OC chapter group. You'll see updates from me quite a bit. I also suggest following these individuals, following their companies, try to connect with them as well on LinkedIn. There's so much great, not just content, but just subject matter expertise that can make our lives as salespeople so much easier, right? Welcome to the 21st century. Embrace it, love it, own it, hug it, right? And get there. And if you have any questions, you need help, again, I'm here. Amir is a chapter officer, so is John Reese. And again, continue to come and network with us, and we'll have a great sales community in Southern California. So I really appreciate it, and thank you so much, and thank you so much to our panelists. You guys are fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks.